the question is, what are we returning? Returning to what? What does it mean true? Return. Does it mean a return from or return to? Kol mitzvah b'Torah ben eseh ben lo yisaseh. So the Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva at the beginning starts like this: every mitzvah, both in eseh and lo yisaseh, im aver adam malachas man ben bezod ben mishkaga, kishiyasa tshuva v'yashem mechatoi chayv l'isvadas. That tshuva is kishiyashuv. Tshuva means when a person is returning from his chet. So tshuva doesn't mean a return to, but it means a return from. You're in a certain pattern of behavior, and then you're returning v'yashem mechatoi. You're returning from the chet. Later on, in Perek Zion, the Rambam Hilchos Lachav Vav says, "G'dayil tshuva shmekaves adam l'shchina." Greatest tshuva that brings a person closer to the Shechina. Shenemar shuvi yisol Hashem l'kechem. V'never loishim after Hashem. V'never im tashav yisol nu Hashem alai tashav. That tshuva is not tshuva mechatoi, tshuva from a sin, but tshuva is actually a tashav el Hashem. If you're going to do tshuva, which means you return to Hashem, you're going to be davik on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, tshuva mekareves zarchoikim, emesh hazeh sonu l'fi hamakim, meshukas meruchim metuov, hayemu ov v'nechva karav yedid. That the idea of tshuva is to return to a state, not returning from something negative. So therefore, tshuva means that you're returning to something. You're returning to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And on a deeper level, tshuva means that you're returning to yourself. This is what the avodas tshuva is, to be true to yourself, to be who you are. But what does that mean? This is $1 million question. What does it mean to be tashuv, to return to yourself? And what's b'chal? What's not Rosh Hashanah? What is slichus? What are we trying to do? Why do we say slichus by night? In this very interesting time, Dafka after Chatzos, Magen Avraham brings down very strongly from the Arizal that you're not allowed to stay slichas before Chatzos. You have to stay Dafka after Chatzos. There's something about the changing of times, that it's moving from night to day. That's what happens in Chatzos. There's the idea of that if you learn Torah about Chatzos, there's something about Chatzos. Chatzos is that time that straddles these two universes, these two worlds. And moving from Chatzos means you're moving away from darkness, mafel loira. You're moving from a place of darkness to light. That's you're moving into the new year. Tich l'shana v'kalaseh. At the end of the year, the curses should end, and now beginning of the new year, so you're moving from darkness to light. So that's why we say slichus. But what is slichus? So b'kitzer, just to say a few words, to understand what tshuva is and what is slichus, I'll give you a little bit of structure from the Arizal, which some of you are not going to be familiar with these words, and then we'll try to understand what this means. Understand what is really Rosh Hashanah, what are we trying to do? So the Arizal, in the Oisis Ari, in Shar Akavanas, he talks about something that's called the Nesira. That he talks about something that's called a Nesira. Okay, we'll say Nesira means a severing apart. And he talks about how Yazav b'chinas vav k'tzavis levad v'anekeva hoy b'chinas asiris b'seid nukva nukudik tana klum yud. That Zohar Ampin, I'll tell you what this means in a moment, that Zohar Ampin was in a state of just having a certain amount of spheres, and Nekeva and the parallel, which is Malchus, was also not in a full structure. Loya parts of Shalom was not in the parts of Shalom, was not a full persona. And therefore, this Zaisa Nakuda, this potential, this Nakuda, this little point, was not able to be in a place of panim, face to face. And it only received from the Ara Idei Zah, only received from Zohar Ampin. And therefore there was a slumber, Just like a person goes to sleep, there's a tardema. There was a sleep, and in the sleep, Malchus severed itself from Zoyrampin, and now Malchus becomes a full Partzuf, and now Malchus can be in a Partzuf, in a persona, can be not Acher ba'Acher, not back to back, but face to face. I don't know if anyone understood what I just said, but I'll just explain this in very simple language. And this is the side of what Rosh Hashanah is all about. If you look at the beginning of the Torah, where the Torah talks about the creation of Adam and Chava, which is, we know that Rosh Hashanah is a time that we commemorate not Yitziras Ha'olam, we're not commemorating the birth of creation, we're talking about the birth of humanity. Zayam Tchilas Ma'asecha is really, Tchilas Ma'asecha really is the Kavanas Ma'asecha, the Tachlis Ma'asecha, which is the Adam. Because B'chafei Elul is Nivra Olam, but the Adam was Nivra on Rosh Hashanah. So we're talking about what does it mean to be a human being, just even the fact of what it means to be human. So if you look in the Torah where it talks about the creation of Adam, so there's two stories. There's, in Perek Aleph, the story starts off where Adam and Chava are created, Zachem and Akeva bara Oisam. Nasam Tzalmeinu K'Nuseinu, Zachem and Akeva bara Oisam. Hashem created Adam and Chava as one being, Zachem and Akeva bara Oisam. And Chazal, the Gemara in Brachas, you also learned that, some of you learned it just recently in Erevin, the Gemara talks about if it's Acher, it's Panim Panim, Panim Panim, or Panim V'Zonov. But the point is that there's a persona, there's a being that Zachem and Akeva bara Oisam that has two faces, and the two faces are the two structures is almost some type of hybrid between a male and a female. So we'll say one part of the body is Zachar, one part of the body is Nekeva, and they're attached. This is called also in the Lashon of the Ari. This is called a zivug tmidi. Zivug tmidi means that it's in a constant state of unity. It's achar b'achar, and it's a constant state of unity. This is what happens in Perek Aleph of Bereshis. In Perek Beis of Bereshis, the Torah has a different story where the Torah talks about the creation of Adam and Chava, but here the creation story is a little bit different. At first there was a creation of Adam, and then after Adam is the Loyatza is connected, Hashem didn't find someone that can be a partner for Adam and Rishon. Adam loy Motzei, and he wasn't able to find. It's not good for man to be alone, so therefore Adam was put into a sleep, in a tardema, and then Hashem took one of his sides, and therefore Chava was created. So in Perek Beis, the story is that not the Zachar and Nekeva bara Oisam, they were created simultaneously, but they were created first the Zachar and then the Nekeva. This is the Perek Beis story. And then it says, this creation of Chava will now be an Ezer Kenegdai. Ezer Kenegdai means, what Chazal tell us, Rashi means Ezer Kenegdai is Im Zacha Ezer, in Lo Zacha Kenegdai, but it's someone that's outside of you, corresponding to you. This is what's called a Panim al Panim relationship. In the first story of Bereshis, the name Hashem does not appear in the first story of Bereshis. The name Elokim only appears in the first story of Bereshis. In fact, it appears 32 times. It appears only Shem Elokim. Bereshis bar Elokim, only Elokim. In Perek Beis, it starts off B'yom Asois Hashem Elokim, that Hashem creates. In Perek Aleph, it says that Nasom Kitzalmeinu K'Nuseinu, the man is created B'Tselem Elokim, man Zachar v'Nekeva bara Oisam, so Adam and Chava slashed together. They're connected with the Tzura, the Tselem Elokim, but they don't have a neshama. It doesn't say that they have a neshama. In Perek Beis, it says Vayipach b'apav nishmas chayim, which Hashem blows into his nostrils the breath of life. And therefore that means that in Perek Beis, the second man has a chelik elikam imal mamash, has a living, breathing part of Hashem. So what's the difference between these two stories? So the first thing is that in the first story, the tzura of Zachar and Nekeva, and this becomes a grand mashal. The way the Arizal is going to read this, he uses Isa Kabbalah, but this is the mashal, the nimshal of this idea is that there's a Kadosh Baruch Hu, which represents the Zachar, the Mashpia, the giver, and then there's Knesset Yisrael, which is the receiver, the Makabel, which represents Nukva, Nekeva. So we are the Nekeva, we are Malchus. In the first story of creation, the Zachar and Nekeva Bara Isam, there was a Zivuk Tmidi. Zivuk Tmidi means that these two were in a constant state of a relationship. But their relationship was Acher Ba'acher, or Gav al Gav, back to back. In Perek Beis, there is first the creation of one and then the creation of other. But the other is actually an other. And the objective of the other is that it's not a zivuk tmidi, but it's a zivuk that can be, it's not constant, it's not constantly attached. Like in the first narrative, they're separate from each other. But when they do come together, it'll be in a way of panim al panim, face to face, not in a way of back to back. What is the basic difference between face to face and back to back? So back to back, a relationship, what it means to have a Acher B'Acher relationship is what everything in the created world, in the entire Bria, is part of an Acher B'Acher relationship. Why is it an Acher B'Acher relationship? Because there's the Mashpia, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then there's the Makabel, which is the receiver. So let's say you're a lion or a zebra, right? So the Hashem creates this lion to hunt, creates the zebra to be hunted. This is part of the natural world. At every point in the life of this lion, or the life of the tree, or a stone for that matter, anything of creation, they're in constant state, they're in a zivuk tmidi with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why are they in a zivuk tmidi with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Because the Shefa Liki comes down and says, you should be a lion, and that's exactly who they are at every time. A lion doesn't stop being a lion, ever. Right? A lion is a lion, and that's what it does for his whole life, it's a lion. A zebra is a zebra, that's what it does for the rest of his life. And a tree is a tree. Which means it doesn't have bechira, doesn't have choice. It doesn't decide, today I don't want to be a lion, I'm very lazy to be a lion, today I want to be a vegetarian. It doesn't work. You hunt, you eat meat, this is where you live. You're not going to survive on berries. This is the metzius of the lion. So the conditioning of everything in the Bria is in a constant state, what we'll call zivuk tmidi. But it's not a real encounter, because why is it not a real encounter? Because it's acher ba'acher, which means one, like the Gemara says, it's a panav v'zanav. So in other words, one is the face, one is leading, and the other one is being led. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is leading the zebra, or the lion, and the lion is being led exactly where HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it. So it's not that the lion decides, I would like to have a relationship with God. You're in constant relationship with Hashem. You're actually a direct manifestation of Hashem's will. You're doing exactly Hashem's will at the Ratzon Hashem at every single moment. This is called a zivug that is tmidi, but it's not a real encounter that's panim upon him. This you can have a relationship. This could be a relationship with. Unfortunately, you can have a relationship like this with a coworker. You can have a relationship like this with your child. You can have with your spouse. You can have any type of relationship. If you have a relationship that you're the dominant person in the relationship, and the other person has no voice, and you just say, you go, with your child. It's a 3-year-old child. Wherever you schlep the child, you decide to move to Muncie, the child moves to Muncie. It doesn't say, okay, I like Brooklyn. It doesn't, no such thing. He's a 2-year-old baby. So wherever the parent goes, that's where the child goes. And this could be also, unfortunately, with relationships people have when they're 50 and 100, whatever. But the kudah is, on one hand, it's very sweet because it's zivik tmidi. They're attached to the hip. Wherever you go, they go. The problem is you actually never really encounter them. You never actually had a real conversation with them because you're not really interested in having a conversation with them, because the moment you have a conversation with them, you're going to sever this tie. And it's not going to be a zivik tmidi. So this is what the Arizal is saying. Comes Rosh Hashanah, what's the difference in the Bria in Adam Aleph, the first creation of Adam Rishon, and versus the creation of Adam Rishon in Perek Beis? In Perek Aleph, Adam Rishon was created. Zachar v'nekeva bara oisam. What is the understanding of Zachar v'nekeva bara oisam? That means that Adam Rishon in the story of Perek Aleph was just like any other animal, maybe a more evolved animal, but an animal. So what does it mean that he was mostly animal? It means that he lived in a state of zivuk tmidi, and zachav and nekeva bar oisam. So it's a reflection of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Torah phrases it in our relationship between Adam and Chava. It's a zivuk tmidi, but it's achar ba'achar. Now comes the Arizal and says that the tachlis hakavana is that the Eibishter wants that he should have a relationship with us that's called panim al panim. What's a relationship panim al panim? Panim al panim means that the person is actually choosing to have a relationship. The person has free choice, has bechira. And he's not in a state of a zivuk tmidi, that he's in constant state of unity with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not. But he's choosing to face HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, Hineni, I'm here, I want to be with you. What is that relationship? That relationship is when it's panim al panim. How does a person have a panim al panim relationship? When you have a relationship with someone that's an adult, right? It's someone that has their own independent thinking, their own independent way of understanding. They have their own independent life. And they say, I'm choosing to live with you, to be with you. Which means it's not a zivuk tmidi, because they can always sever ties and just walk away. And in fact, they're actually separate from each other. But they're choosing to face each other, to stand aligned in front of each other. That's the depth of the idea of Ezer Kenegdoi. It's not two separate things. It's not Ezer or Kenegdoi. The reason why it can actually really be an Ezer isn't because it's an actually Kenegdoi. Because it's actually someone that has another opinion that's choosing to make that opinion like yours, or to listen to your opinion, or to find some type of balance of opinions. This is what the idea of the panim al panim relationship. And this is what the Torah tells us when the Torah talks about that in order for Chava to be created, that Adam should move from a place of achar ba'achar to panim al panim, there was a tardema. There was a slumber. And what is the idea of the slumber? The slumber is to create a possibility of an isira, of a separation, which means that Zar Ampin, which is the masculine, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kaviyachol goes to sleep. What does it mean that it goes to sleep? And this is what actually happens on Rosh Hashanah by night, which is the night of Nisir, the night of Tardema. That what does it mean? It means that the mashpia, the Zohar and the mashpia in this narrative, chooses to say, I'm actually going to quiet down. I'm going to go to sleep. Which means I'm not going to be expressive, because I know that I need to build you. I need the makabel to be built as a real makabel, not to just be in a zivuk tmidi. I need the makabel to actually build its own parts of. So if I'm constantly overwhelming the receiver never can become its own parts of. It can never become its own identity. The only way the receiver can become its own identity is if, let's say, for example, you'll have this with parents and children. If the parents are very overbearing parents, and even to the extent that they're overbearing, even when the children are going through adolescence or they're going through teenager years, they're going to overwhelm the child, and the child is going to actually feel stifled. Because what the parents have to do at this time is the parents actually have to stop being the same parent that they were when there was a zivuk tmidi when they were little children, to allow for the building of the makabel of their malchus, of their receiving, in order for them to become their identity. So this is what the tardema, the sleeping and the slumber is kaviyachol. The Shechina is going to sleep, kaviyachol. And what happens in the tardema? In the tardema state, there's a nesira. Nesira means that these two things are now being severed apart. When there's a severing of apart between the mashvi and the makabel, that's when there is dinim. That's when there's a possibility of complications. Because when there's a zivuk tmidi, let's say, take about an analogy. If you're having a relationship with a little child, a 3-year-old, there's no difficulties. Okay, the child maybe screams and jumps, but there's no problem. The parent and the child, if you're a good father, a good mother, the relationship is okay. When becomes dinim? When does dinim come into effect? When there's the process of nesira. When there's a process of nesira is now these two things are now going to start separating from each other. So when they're achar ba'achar, this is the Arizal says in his language. It says when there's achar ba'achar, then there's no yenikul chitzonim, which means there's no negative forces that can take control. But once there's starting the severing apart, which is the idea of the nesira, now the child is unprotected, because now the parent is no longer hovering over the child. It's no longer achar ba'achar. Now the child is becoming its independent, and that's when there's a possibility of dinim. And the Arizal says, and that's the reason why Rosh Hashanah is a time of din. Why is Rosh Hashanah a time of din? Because Rosh Hashanah by night, until we blow the shofar, which the blowing of the shofar, which will be now the Ur Yeshedim Mishnaschem, the idea of waking up. Rosh Hashanah is the time that we're going to wake up. So until the point where we're going to wake up, which is going to be Rosh Hashanah in the morning, until you blow the shofar, there's dinim kashin, there's very strong judgments, because now Malchus is sort of independent now. It's becoming it's the binyan of Malchus. Malchus is becoming a vessel, becoming itself, and because it's becoming itself, it's no longer connected with Zoram, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol, because there's a Shina, there's a Tardema. Malchus is now, there's a lot of dinim of Malchus. And that's why, unfortunately, we know this, even with children. If children are going through adolescence and going through troubled years and they're trying to find themselves, when is the most troubling time for people's human development? Is those teenage years. Why? Because they're trying to assert their independence and they don't really know who they are yet. So sometimes people try all different types of crazy things in order to find their self-identity. That's when the dinim come. That's the unique l'chitzonim. So what happens is, what happens Rosh Hashanah by night, and then comes finally Rosh Hashanah by day. What is Rosh Hashanah by day? You blow the shofar. And then you say that actually now we're ready to have a relationship which is going to be panim upon him, face to face. And that's the movement from Adam Aleph, which Adam Aleph is that he's an Acher ba'Acher, which means that he's part of the relationship of with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a way, like with anything part of the creations in relation to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that's not the Kavanah Sabriya. That's Hashem doesn't want that. That's not the reason why Hashem created the world. That's part of the kavanah, but that's not the tachlis kavanah. The tachlis kavanah of the creation was that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to have a relationship. In other words, what does it mean as a relationship? HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create a human being that's going to have free choice, and free choice means it can be ezer and it can be kenegdoi, which means you could choose to be panel with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You could say, I choose to live my life noichech pnei Hashem. And I also, Chalil, could choose my life not to be that way. You have the free choice. But that's the only way you're going to have a real relationship. In order for the relationship to be real, it only can be panim upon. It can be acher b'acher. And it cannot be zivuk tmidi. It has to be a zivuk that is eina tmidius. And that's the tainik tmidi is eina tainik. Something that's a continuous pleasure is not pleasurable. Only something when it's a novelty. When it's a chiddush, it says, I can choose to live this way, and yet I'm choosing to live this way. That's the chiddush. That's the panim upon relationship, and that's the binyan hamalchus. So malchus is becoming developed into its personality. It's becoming developed into its character, and it's becoming its identity. And then it has that relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what's Rosh Hashanah, and what's Slichos, and what are we trying to do? Rosh Hashanah is a time that, in a very simplistic level. And I've mentioned this before, but there are Baz writes, in Metzudas David, he writes, among David, he writes, Rosh Hashanah is a time that a person is being judged, Ima HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's being judged and judged with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It means, on Rosh Hashanah, the question that really on Rosh Hashanah is, and this is how we have to enter into Slichos, and it's not a sad time, but it's a serious time, is, could we justify our existence? It's a very simple question, but a very hard one to answer. Could we justify our existence? It says that it's a Mishpal L'Kei Yaakov. It's a judgment for L'Kei Yaakov. What is a Mishpal L'Kei Yaakov? What does it mean, a Mishpal L'Kei Yaakov? It says in Sforim that Mishpal L'Kei Yaakov means, there's a Medrash, that the Medrash says that when the Eibusha wanted to create Adam, so he wanted to create someone that had Bechira, someone that can mess up, and someone that can, fall, and someone that can get up. Someone that can make mistakes and yet get up. In other words, it's a new type of bria. So the Malachim, it says the Emes came and said that this person's be from Shkarim, and Tzedek came and said this person will be from all the other negative things. And each Malach and each Sar came and said, "My Yuludisha, like, what are you creating this person? It's just going to be problems." And there's an interesting message. The message says that while all the Malachim are arguing, of course we have to understand this, not a little bit deeper. But while all the Malachim are arguing, the Eibusha said went ahead and created man. He said, okay, you guys are busy arguing over here. I'm just going to go figure this out. I'm just going to make man. So it says, what's Mishpat L'Kei Yaakov? What's Mishpat L'Kei? Mishpat L'Kei Yaakov means that the Kaviyachol is on judgment. Rosh Hashanah is not only a judgment on us. The Malachim come to the Eibusher and say, okay, you gave life to this Chaim Yankel. You made him in a parts of that he has panim relationship with me. You created him with this ability to transgress. You gave him this ability that he can be stuck in all these negative patterns of behavior. You created this person that he can really mess up his life. But you said it was worth it, because you said, but I can have a panim relationship with this guy. And it's all worth it. I just want to have a panim relationship. I don't want to have acher relationships. Hashem says, I really want to have a relationship with someone that can stand against me and yet choose me. And the Mishpat L'Kei Yaakov is like, there's a judgment on L'Kei Yaakov. The L'Kei Yaakov, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Malachim say, okay, you made this guy. Is it worth it? So did it work out? Are you happy with this guy's story? And what are we supposed to do? We have to make sure that we can justify our story. We have to be like Hashem's advocate over here and say, there's a word that it says, when it says Zechrein L'Chaim Melech Ha'atz B'Chaim, it says it's a word from the Gra and from the Magid message, which they say a lot of things the same thing. That it says that Zechrein L'Chaim means, he's not saying Zechrein L'Chaim, the Eibush is Zechrein L'Chaim. Of course, the Eibush is Zechrein L'Chaim, always Zechrein L'Chaim. The Eibush is the B'chai Chaim. He always wants to give life. Zechrein L'Chaim means that I know that I deserve life. How do you know you deserve life? Zechrein L'Chaim. So the Gra says that there's, Sefer Yitzir says that the world was created b'sefer, b'sefer, b'sipur, b'sefer, b'sefer, b'sefer. There's different Gersais in Sefer Yitzir. So there's an author, and there's a book in a book. When it says on Rosh Hashanah, Sefer Chaim, Sefer Mesim, on Iftachim, where's the Sefer Chaim and Mesim? Where exactly is the Sefer? Where's the book? Where's this grand book of life and death? Where is it? It's somewhere tucked away between Mars and Jupiter. Like, where exactly is this book? She says, no, the book is very simple. Before a person is created, the Eibusher writes a story and says, in year 1970, 1965, 1980, whenever you're born, Tav Shemem, Gimel El, Chaim Yankel's going to be born to these parents. This person, I'm giving him a neshama, I'm giving him these other talents, I'm giving him this is his qualities, this is the context of his life, and I see this person having a beautiful life. I see the person is going to have a panim relationship with me. He's always going to be connected with me. He's going to live a higher life, a deeper life, a meaningful life, and I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. Hashem says, I think it's worth it for this person. And the author, the grand author of creation, writes a sefer. And then there's another sefer. The sefer is us. We're the sefer. Now, Maram Pano says that the sefer, when it talks about the sefer in Netzavim, the Maram Pano says, where's the sefer in Netzavim? It's actually in your brain. Your brain. What contains your memory? The sefer is you. Your story. Every day you're writing a story, right? You're an author, you're writing a story. What's your story? Today you're writing a story. Sometimes you're writing a good story, sometimes you're writing not such a good story, but you're writing a story. That's every single moment to moment you're writing a story. On Rosh Hashanah, the Sefer Chaim, Sefer Amavis are open, the Sfarim are open. Which Sfarim? The original story and your story. And the author is looking and saying, okay, does this story align with this story? Are these the two stories are correct? Are they matched up? Are the stories matching? Let's open up the person's brain. Let's read the person's story, the narrative of their memory. Let's read what this person did in the last year. And let's see. I predicted, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I imagined this person. I gave him these amount of talents. I gave him all these koiches. I'm going to give him Bana, Chayim, Zoyin. I'm going to give him everything that he needs in this life to make something out of himself. And trust me, I put all this koiches and I believe in him. He's not an animal. He's not going to have a relationship. He's going to have a panim relationship. And I believe that this person is going to be this person that I believe. And this is the story that I created for this person. And that's why I gave him all this. I gave him all his genetics and his upbringing and the context of his entire life. And now the question is, on Rosh Hashanah, the Sefer Nechtavim, the Sfarim are open, and we say, could we align these two stories to say that this story is aligned to that story? Could we say that? Zechrein L'Chaim, when you say Zechrein L'Chaim, could we really say, I'm living up, I know you gave me, these are the talents that you gave me. You gave me, this is the brain that I have. These are the feelings. This is the capacities that we're created with. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I think I'm trying to do the best I can. I can't say, of course, you can't say that, you're a tzaddik gomer, but I'm trying. I'm trying to live up to what I'm using everything, the tools that you gave me, to become the greatest person that I could become. Because you believed in me, and I believe in myself, and this is what I'm striving for. Zacheinu l'chaim. Can I remember myself for life? Could we align the Sefer and the Sefer? And this is the Mishpat L'Kei Yaakov. So Slichas comes along. We say L'chol Hashem Tzedakah V'lo B'Yishas Aponim. Say L'chol Hashem Tzedakah. This is we start Rosh Hashanah. Say, listen, I want to have a upon relationship. I want to make sure that the story that I'm writing, the story of my life, is lived up to its potential, its full maximum potential, the way the real story has to be. I'm striving for it, I'm yearning for it, I'm longing to create that story. But the truth is, I want to tell you, Hashem, I want to be honest. I have to be upon, I have to be honest with you. That, L'cha Hashem Tzedakah, that Hashem, I know that no matter what I do, no matter how I lived, no matter how I lived this past year, no matter the mistakes that I made, L'cha Hashem Tzedakah, you're always ready to give me more and to allow me to correct my mistakes. And therefore, I'm really embarrassed. I'm embarrassed because of Hashem Tzedakah. Because Hashem, I know that you'll always be there, and you'll always give me enough strength to actually overcome. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always there. A person always can rely on Hashem to give him strength, to push forward, to correct things, to change patterns. And this is part of the tshuva. The tshuva is not, we don't have to think about this, it's not a laundry list. Come to Hashem and say, I did this, I did that. Hashem doesn't want that. I mean, it's not for now. It's not. El, that's Yom Kippur, exactly. We'll talk about it Yom Kippur. It's not now. On Rosh Hashanah, we don't mention any al-chet. There's no sins. There's no nothing. We don't talk about that. The Medrash says, the Torah brings down, Leivshin Leveinim, Satvan Leveinim. There's even a Lashon HaTorah that they trim their beards, and the Nara Samar says it's a Tos Atvus, whatever, it's a problem. But anyways, they come with, it says they smell nicely. I guess they wore cologne even then, perfume. Why? Because betuchim. It says the Medrash says they're betuchim. They're certain they're going to have a good judgment. Because to enter into Rosh Hashanah, it's not about gribbling to think about all the details. It's Achashalti Meis Hashem. That's Elul. Achashalti Meis Hashem means there's one thing that I want. Shifta Meis Hashem Kol Yemei Chai. I want to be in your presence, which means I want to live my life Nochich Pnei Hashem. I want to live my life. Really, what would it mean to live with the Noichus Pnei Hashem in a real way? If your Creator is standing there right in front of you, which He is, but to believe that and to feel that, Noichus Pnei Hashem, your whole life just, it's just, everything moves into the right direction. You don't have to, sometimes when a person is in a very good matzav, a person has moichem, has godless on moichem, a person's feeling in a good place, let's say a person's marrying off a child, or had a baby. There's sometimes a person's in a good matzah, a very good place, and then everything else falls apart. All the nonsense and silliness and stupidity that a person's struggling with, all of a sudden these things don't matter anymore. The Kotzker Rebbe once said that it's not Pre-Selichot. I'm sorry. I say it's not Pre-Selichot. It's depression. It's not a person that's a poirikoil. It's a person that's not feeling well. Because when you're not in a good matzav, you do all these crazy stuff. That's the field of emptiness, the void. You're trying to figure out, I'll do this thing, that thing to figure. When a person is in a good matzav and feeling in the right place, it's not the Pre-Selichot, it's depression. When a person is in a good place, a person feels, Hashem, your whole life runs smoothly. Everything's going in the right direction. This is what slichus is. That the slichus, yes, we say Hashem, we say Tachna, we say all these things, but the nekuda of the entire idea of to get to Rosh Hashanah is to say, I want to live my life Nochich Pnei Hashem. I want to recognize that my life is Neichel Pnei Hashem, and it doesn't mean that I don't have struggles, and it doesn't mean that I don't have doubts, and I live in a place of bechira. I do. That's dafka the place where Hashem wants me. Hashem wants to have a relationship with me the way I am, in the place that I actually could be Ezer and could be Kenegdoi. And in that place, to choose to be close to Hashem and to have Kirvas Hashem. So maybe should help. We should be Matzliach.